Hello, my name is Kaylin Cummings. This video is for assignment to the community relations interview. I had the pleasure of interviewing William Hawkins, who is currently the principal at Northeastern Elementary School. Northeastern Elementary School and myself have a really awesome relationship, being that my club, the Boys and Girls Club Northeastern unit, is located within the school, and so I had the opportunity to sit down and talk one-on-one with Mr. Hawkins about several themes that I feel are very important pertaining to community relations. And this assignment. The first theme that I spent some time focusing on was the role of the parents. Being that a lot of our interactions with the parents are pretty similar, I wanted to get some insight on some things that he might just be dealing with that I don't necessarily deal with. So the question pertaining to the role of the parents was, how is the role of the parents here? So how does the role of the parents impact the education that's being provided? The Kalamazoo School District, Northeastern Elementary specifically, is actually in the top 5 lowest percent of schools in the state of Michigan. 98% of the students have free reduced lunch. Most of the parents have no more than a high school education, and some don't even have that. And so having the role of the parents can be very diverse, being that resource-wise, the school tries to provide a number of resources for the parents to be able to provide and parent their children. He said verbatim that he hasn't met a parent who doesn't want their child to succeed. However, they just don't have the resources. And if we offer kids, the opportunity in which parents can come and be a part of certain things. So there have been certain events and things that are not so based on academics, but more so social and inclusive, things that include food and a number of events, so that to get the parents in the door, to have those conversations with parents. For example, my club and I actually were a part of the parent-teacher conferences that took place 2 weeks ago. And at the parent-teacher conferences, they actually made it a game night, so that the idea was to have parents and families come in to speak about their kids, but also be provided with a hot meal, because that could be dinner for a lot of people that night. There were games, there were prizes, that type of thing. So the role of the parents is very important. So having that parent buy-in is also very important. So that was one of the main themes of our interview. The second theme of our interview was the community and school relationship. And so prior to this class, I didn't understand how the importance of having community and school relationship and how they impact one another. And in finding out the importance of community relations pertaining to school environment, that led me to my next question, which I asked was, did he believe that there was a strong sense of community between the elementary school and the east side of Kalamazoo, because that's where the school is located on. This was something that he is continuously trying to build, trying to have some one-on-one relationships. There are a number of organizations he is partnered with. For example, again, the Boys and Girls Club, which is who I work for, communities and schools. And he was also able to provide me with this really awesome list, which was super cool, of entities and organizations that work collectively with Northeastern Elementary School to bring that sense of community. I did ask him, what issues do you have while trying to build this strong sense of community? And the only issue that he had was when the school closed. So school closings kind of caused this, the need of the kids is not being met. And so the need of the kids is highly important, on top of developing trust, being open, being honest, being inviting. So when he first got to the elementary school, that was somewhat of a struggle because of the previous individuals' actions and things like that. So he really, really, really tried to be proactive in building that relationship, inviting individuals in, providing the community, providing the elementary school with a multiple of resources in order to fulfill what is needed for the students. Those were the main two themes of my interview. Other things that were briefly discussed were strategies for communication, which, being that community relations is very important, community relations and his strategies. One thing I'll quickly highlight, although that was not a main theme of our interview, was his choice in not to use social media as a platform to communicate with parents. I felt this was a little interesting. However, Hawkins is in his late 50s, and so being that not being as tech savvy, we would say, he chooses not to use social media. Other elementary schools in Kalamazoo do use social media to connect with parents and things like that. His choice is to be really engaging one-on-one, face-to-face type of communication, newsletters, robocalls, those type of things. And then as far as there being any barriers, back to my question about the role with parents, I talked about the education barrier. However, the other barrier that I briefly, wanted to know about was language. Super cool. Hawkins can speak Spanish, and so there is a group of students that are bilingual, and so being able to communicate thoroughly and him being able to understand, I feel like is very, very, very important. And that, again, that community relations, that trust, that you want to serve us, you're here for us, we can actually come talk to you and not be uncomfortable, and not have nervousness about speaking to you in a different language. And so Hawkins had a multitude of accolades and credentials behind him. He's been in education for approximately 23 years, in multiple roles. So there were really, really awesome points in that interview that I took away some things, which leads me to my reflection of my development as a leader. He inspired me to want to pursue the ability to become bilingual. I think it is very important to be able to reach people on their level and to have this assumption that everybody understands the way you understand or speaks the way you speak. We need to be able to bridge that gap, and in order to bridge the gap, as a developing leader, I need to make sure that I am constantly pushing myself and challenging myself to be a part of certain communities and organizations so that I can, number one, understand fully, and number two, that I'm able to make an impact that's worth substance. Another thing as a developing leader, community relations. So although his choice is not to use social media as a platform, again, being able to be a part of whatever community that the community that I am serving is a part of. So living in that community, serving that community, if that means sending out Facebook messages to be in touch with parents or community leaders and things like that, that again, that I'm reaching each individual on their level and not always making them come to where I am. Because as previously mentioned, there are barriers: language, education, poverty. There's so many barriers that prevent individuals from having that community piece. And because that community piece is very important, as I was reading and understood throughout this whole class, building that gap, bridging that gap, understanding one another, and having some empathy for the next individual. The last thing that I will bring up as far as a developing leader is the opportunity to grow. So allowing myself to be a part, again, of organizations and communities in which I am growing and developing as a leader, not something where I am stagnant, something that I am not having fun. And when I say not having fun, I know work is not always fun, but there's passion, there's change happening. There are many, many things occurring in which I see that the community that I'm working for is benefiting. So those are very important pieces as far as community relations, building that gap, being sure that I'm a part of the community in which I'm serving, and lastly, really being that advocate and also meeting people where they are is extremely important to me as pertaining to me, my development as a leader. That was my interview. Attached are pictures of my questions. Also attached are pictures of me actually interviewing him. So thank you so much for this awesome class, and thanks.